Grand Theft Auto 5. A game still enjoyed by millions across the world. Well, when you're not getting blown up or have your game crashed by someone who just refuses to bathe. Regardless of what you think about the current state of the game, its legacy and impact absolutely cannot be understated. When you release something as groundbreaking as this title was, data miners and generally curious people want to know exactly what it could have looked like before its actual release. Cut content, beta builds, and leaks are all something very ingrained in video game culture, and GTA is no exception. But having an actual beta build of a GTA game? Other series are a little more lucky in this regard. However, back in 2017, one lucky user on the GTA forums managed to obtain a development kit with beta builds of GTA 5, dating as far back as a year before the game was released. But you might be asking, how come earlier versions of the game are still shrouded in mystery? This is the story of Carson GT and the time Rockstar Games sued a 14-year-old. The story starts on August 26, 2017. User Carson GT chimes into a thread on the GTA forums called the GTA 5 Beta Hunt, with a post that's since been edited over. The original text of some of his posts unfortunately haven't been archived, but with context clues and replies that partially or fully quoted his posts, we can thankfully make some assumptions. Essentially, a friend of Carson GT's managed to obtain PS3 dev kits with improperly wiped hard drives. After running some recovery software to find whatever files were salvageable, files of earlier iterations of GTA 5 were discovered. Carson presumably immediately began divulging the story behind this dev kit, and thankfully, by the grace of some backed up posts, see that he began to show certain things off, like data from an executable, labels on an unused pause menu, and strings related to the PS Vita, which were later found out to be used in the iFruit app. He also explains exactly what he found. Also, there's pre-release DLC on the dev kit as well, most notably Clown DLC and pre-release heists. It also seems there are multiple GTA 5 builds, one from 2012, maybe even another one from 2012, one from May 2013, and one from July 2013 respectively. The recovery tool didn't put files in its correct folders for GTA 5 and also gave it incorrect names. Each file is separately recovered. Files from different builds seem to be mixed up with each other. We have to find out ourselves what the file type, name, and supposed folder the file has to be in. This is going to be difficult. He later posts, "Let's pray Rockstar doesn't shut my stuff down." In response to this, user Wildbrick142 says, "Any chance you could upload all the files somewhere, regardless of whether they can be read or not, just in case that might happen? Would be a shame to lose what is potentially the holy grail of GTA 5 cut content." Carson then replies to this as a communication channel between them and the owner of the dev kit. Here's what my friend said about the data. Wildbrick142 asked for all the data, but I don't want to do this. GTA 5 is worth a fortune. I want to fix it and keep it as a private build. I may send some photos or videos, but not letting all the data for free. Some files and RPFs even are fine, but not the entire thing. I'm very sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. When we recover all the RPFs, we will post any and all findings we find. If we get it working, we'll record footage of the build running and stuff. At this point, a lot of people had mixed feelings. Some were imploring Carson's friends to back up the dev kits and to keep it on the down low in case something happened. Others were debating the legality of even owning a dev kit and the implication of his friends putting the files behind a paywall, and others were calling the discovery outright fake. In response to this, Carson begins to swear that the build is real, and that he'll be back with the necessary files to prove it. I can fully understand why some people are suspicious. The build, I swear, is real, but I will be back with proof to validate that for you and other members. I know a GTA 5 build is the holy grail, and I could understand why some would refuse to think one would be out there like this. People also began to call out Carson's friend for some perceived hypocrisies in how he's going about the whole thing. I just think your friend is being a little selfish. He doesn't want to share content with the community, but he wants their help to fix the build, and keep it to himself. Maybe we get some screenshots in exchange, but maybe if we pay we get something substantial. Jeez. Later, Ash735, who had previously been part of the group asking for proof, received files from Carson and completely vouched for him. This is a well-respected member of the modding community, who would also go on to have their own legal trouble with Rockstar. Their support went a long way. After this, Carson writes again and seemingly has a bunch of findings. However, likely due to the build being only a couple months out from release, these discoveries were almost all previously found on the PC version of the game to begin with. However, audio files that were posted regarding an early Soulwax FM, as well as altered parts of the game's score that were released later, gave some credibility to the leak in the forum users' eyes. It was seemingly real. Carson then took a 2-month break from posting. But when October 23rd of that year rolled around, he stated he had a lot more. More cut radio station stuff as well as tons of mocap audio and removed lines from removed missions. Still backed by Ash735. A couple months passed with people questioning in passing where Carson was. Apparently a debacle regarding a fake GTA 4 build happened, and that took some focus away. But he came back around February with even more. Well, alright, no, Rockstar didn't track me down. It's just, after the initial debacle of people being so skeptical of this being real, which I understand, my friend doesn't like the site. He'd rather be hush-hush about it until this quote-unquote project of getting the build working is finished. Unfortunately, we're all a bit caught up with IRO and other projects. My friend lately has been busy with importing Vice City into OpenRW and data recovery on Xbox dev kits, GTA 5 isn't that important to him anymore. But we're not giving up on it, and this content drop was the absolute biggest yet. He came back with a ton of information regarding more cut aspects of the radio, removed songs, and DJ dialogue. If that's all it was, maybe it wouldn't be considered as big. But 2 hours later, he comes back to the thread saying he found things related to the Mrs. A and Mrs. B missions. For context, these are 2 Strangers and Freaks missions that were completely removed and scrubbed from the final game except for some leftover text. Later that very same day, he outlines exactly the dialogue that was recovered from the builds, and it's a lot. Carson then uploads a 40-minute video to the thread unlisted. It contained all the cutscene audio they've recovered so far, both outright removed cutscenes and different versions of cutscenes in the final game. If anyone had any doubts about this being real, they were quickly put to rest. I'd also like to take focus away from the hunt for a second for the fact that another dev kit leaked out from Rockstar that was reportedly fully wiped and then stabbed with a screwdriver. Maybe someone there tried to get free shark cards, I don't know. Everything seemed to be going good, and they seem to be making a lot of headway in terms of finding unused or altered content. Until Redditor IanE55 posted a Dropbox link of an early version of GTA 5's Soulwax FM to r/Soulwax. Just for a second, I'd like to bring this thing out again. People notice, naturally. This was apparently a leak from Ash735's personal Dropbox, which was reportedly leaked by another staff member assisting with the process of recovering files. Radio silence followed, with no one really hearing from either Carson or Ash735 for about a month. Then, on March 24, 2018, user P2FX noticed that Carson had deleted or edited all of his posts. People began speculating what happened. Eventually, Carson himself joined the thread again and responded ambiguously. Worse than that. You might be able to surmise what actually happened, but you won't be hearing from me any more regarding this build. Sorry, I have no other choice. An absolutely devastating blow to the GTA beta hunting community. Following this, Carson was silent while everyone else was mourning the loss of the build. Ash eventually came into the thread 2 days later when the Dropbox leak was brought up. He divulges a little more about what happened to him, as well as Carson. Anyone else in here waiting to see Ash out the user that posted on the Soulwax subreddit? I did remember him saying that he and some others know which user did it. Is it worth it to out them? Yes, they shared the file publicly without asking, but they shared it using my Dropbox link, something I should have been more vigilant with. Though to be fair, I've never had anyone leak anything from me before. I'm annoyed. They know they did a shitty thing, only now it's led to something much bigger. Outing them won't fix the issue. It'll cause this thread to be filled with hate and anger, but in the end, we've still lost this. Carson and his friend have lost all their money invested in this, etc. Take-Two have already taken it back and demanded that all assets and files be destroyed, or else they'll ruin Carson and his friends' lives as court debt. The C&Ds had already happened. They were both tracked down by PIs and threatened with extreme legal action for even touching this dev kit from Rockstar North. I just hope those who shared these files publicly outside of this community just reflect on how much shit they've caused just to get Reddit upvotes. The sadder thing is the cut contact outright. Carson has removed me from his chat list because I believe he's taken Take-Two's bait on threatening people to keep quiet about this. Fact is, this is just a bully tactic. Legally, you can speak about C&Ds. Take-Two just threatened people not to do so because they don't want the negative media attention on them. Fact is, if we never spoke up about OpenIV, we'd still be banned from modding single player to this day. Anyone out there who gets a C&D from Take-Two along with threats to just keep quiet about it, don't fall for it unless you've signed an NDA contract from them and have it verified and stamped legally. Take-Two can't do anything to you for simply talking about getting a C&D. In gaming development, dev kits are meant to be returned to Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo. That doesn't always happen. Some are kept in storage, others are later sold. Take-Two is insisting here that they're reclaiming their property. They also stated that making files from the dev builds public will hinder and harm the sales of GTA 5, a game which hasn't left the top 10 sales list for 5 years, and is one of the all-time best-selling games. They encouraged Carson and his friend to hand over their equipment, computers, etc., so that the files and any copies on their drives can be destroyed. So they took back the dev kit and then said any copy should be destroyed, and anyone that has copies should be notified to delete the files or else. They tracked Carson and his friend the same way they got to 5M. They hired private investigators to follow these people around in their daily lives, find out where they live, work, etc., before getting in contact with them in person, and serving them the legal documents from Take-Two, along with a cell phone which has Take-Two's legal department on the other end. Hi, Gina. This is a tactic they've used for years. Really dirty method of doing things, but that's how they operate. A year later, Ash returns to the thread and explains even more of what happened. Unfortunately, some of Ash's later messages further divulging what happened were taken down by the request of Take-Two Interactive. Even more unfortunately, we can't even rely on quotes for this, as any posts that have the quoted content have been overwritten too. Judging by the replies to their posts, either Ash, Carson, the anonymous source, or all of these houses were raided by Take-Two Interactive, under threat of putting them through legal hell. Other than a couple corrections to the narrative that would later be made, that's simply where our story ends. While this situation does suck, people tend to point the finger at either Carson or Ash for the way they handled things. Ash simply mistrusted someone, and Carson simply shared the findings with a small community they never imagined Take-Two could have found. Truthfully, the two that are most at fault in this situation are the Redditor who shared the beta Soulwax, and the original anonymous dev kit holder themselves. Once again. At the end of the day, both of them are symptoms of the root disease that is cut content and leak culture. While yes, cut content and leaks are really cool to see, especially when they give you a behind the scenes look of how certain things were conceptualized, certain betas and unreleased things have this allure of popularity to them. People seem to have the idea that they themselves will be idolized and gain internet fame if they're the very first one to plant their flag on the discovery. In reality, the discovery ends up far more popular than they will ever be, and it leads to some of the most insufferable gatekeeping. If only he had backed everything up in the first place and let the community figure everything else out. That person would ironically be remembered far better than as someone who tried to gatekeep something until it was taken away. The leaker is also guilty of the exact same thing over Reddit karma of all things. A piece of Grand Theft Auto history, now lost forever because of greed. User CP1Del put it better than I could. Things were better when people just anonymously posted shit like that for the greater good. Now you have shits like Carson's friend who want to be the guy, and are all about that internet popularity so they can get an article on Kotaku or PC Gamer written about them. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Like it if you like it, dislike it if you didn't. Raid this address if you really didn't. Subscribe for some more videos. I promise. And that's it. See ya.